episode 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. titled 084. This episode was the first one we get with, the full team together. Obviously, it's episode 2, so last episode they were, getting to know each other pretty much. In this episode, I guess you could kind of say they got to know each other at least a little bit enough to, be a team and kind of beat the bad guys. Um, there are a lot of little elements that we got in this episode. We got a little bit of Coulson's past with Reyes, which was kind of funny. We got more information on May and how she's called the Cavalry. And that's probably my favorite thing about this episode is them explaining, or at least hinting towards, how good she really is. And in episode 1, you could get the sense that she was obviously a really good field agent, but she didn't want to be in the field. And in this episode, we kind of get to see more that it's, you know, like you kind of guess it was because something bad happens, because that's generally why people quit. And you get to see that is why, she quit. Whatever happened, it went wrong. And odds are she just couldn't save a bunch of people, or it might have only been one person, and, they could have been, together or something. And, she lost that person because she wasn't good enough at that specific moment. So she kind of just, transferred to a desk job because she didn't want to deal with it anymore. But I really enjoyed her scenes. The part at the end when she like snaps her wrist, that was gross, but it was also kind of cool. And she's like just beating people up in the whole episode. And I thought the fighting in this episode was really cool too. We got more action, which was nice compared to episode 1, but also the fact that it was very choreographed was really cool too. Um, like right when the airplane's about to be taken over, the like like the main agent, I guess. He like breaks the bottle over the guy's hand, and then he takes him out, and then he takes out the other guy, and then the whole scene when they're trying to deal with the fact that the plane's like plummeting. They have to hold on to stuff while also fighting other guys, and they're knocking them down, and a couple of guys get sucked right out of the plane. I thought it was a really well done scene, and I always enjoy those crazy type of scenes where people have to fight against each other while trying not to just like basically if they fell, and they would pretty much just get sucked right out. So they had to keep their footing while also taking out these people who have guns. So they have to really maneuver in a specific way so that they don't screw up and get themselves sucked out of the plane. So I enjoyed that scene too. And we got more connections to the movies, which was really cool. And we got our first cameo by Samuel L. Jackson. For this being episode 2, I thought that was really cool. I didn't expect us to get like a cameo from anyone for a couple of episodes, maybe mid-season or towards the end of the season, really. But episode 2, they brought in Samuel L. Jackson as excuse me, as Nick Fury. And he has a funny little scene. It's really quick, but I enjoyed that scene, and it was a cool little surprise that he came into the episode. And like I said, it's only episode 2, and it gives me hope that we might see him a lot more than I was expecting originally, because obviously Samuel L. Jackson, as well as pretty much everyone else who's in all the Marvel films, they're really big actors, so it will be kind of hard to get them into episodes and things like that. And that's one of the main things that everyone talks about is how they think like, oh, they'll never get like Robert Downey Jr. to come in because it would be so much money, or get other people to come in just because it would be so much money. But like you never know. I mean, they got Samuel L. Jackson in episode 2. They're probably, or I guess since it's probably already filmed, they probably try really hard to get other people, and we probably do get cameos. And if it's not cameos, voice work or something, some sort of cameo by other actors in some way, shape, or form. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the season to see just who does pop in and things like that. But each episode, even though it's only been first 2, they really do connect with the movies, and I enjoy how they do that. They've mentioned the Tesseract, and they talk about like Captain America and the Nazis, and how it has gamma radiation on the 084 device, which is like a super powerful laser beam. And it's really cool. If you saw the movies, and if you've read the comics and know the characters, or like I said, if you saw the movies, you just remember everything from the movies. Every reference was something. The Tesseract was Thor and the Avengers, and also Captain America and stuff like that. And then the gamma radiation is mostly for Hulk. And that was the first thing I thought was there might be a problem where if this got exposed, someone would kind of have a Hulk like reaction and become the Hulk, or not, obviously not the Hulk, but a Hulk like creature. But that didn't happen in this episode. But it's just really cool how they do tie in with the movies, and they kind of remind people, I guess, kind of viewers like me who really do love the movies, because you love the characters before the movies even came out. And they kind of give that support, like, we aren't going to just forget these movies. And they, once again with the cameo, they do show that support, like, hey, we aren't going to just, it's like, it's for cash, but it's not just like cash in, we're just going to do this and not, support the fans. It's going to, tie into the movies. We're going to reference the movies, have characters from the movies that you know. And so I think, it gives me more hope, even though I was very hopeful for the series to begin with. But it gives me even more hope that they will support the fans, like hardcore fans who, like I said, have known the characters for years and, like bought the DVDs for the old, 90s cartoons and bought the comic books and still buy comic books today. So I just think that's really cool how they continuously reference things that, we got from the movies and, of course, initially from the comic books. So I thought that was really cool. But as far as the series itself, detaching from, the history of Marvel and things like that, the characters and their development in this episode I thought was, pretty well done. Like I said, they come together as a team in the end. It's their first real problem. And, Coulson says to Reyes, towards the end of the episode, they are a really good team and, you gave them a common enemy. And that also, in a way, does tie into the Avengers, how, Coulson's death, or, death, or I guess it was his death, however that storyline plays out in the future. But, Coulson being killed did, bring the Avengers together and it gave them a common enemy. And in this episode, Coulson, losing to Reyes and, his entire team doing the same thing, them all losing to the bad guys does give them a common enemy, and they do eventually end up working together. And the new girl, throughout the episode, she's having all these problems where she's just, trying to fit in because she's not an agent. And, one of the most interesting things was towards the beginning of the episode when, the rebels come in and they're packing up all this stuff, and she grabs one of the, little camera things and she puts it in the wrong spot, and the guy kind of freaks out and she says it doesn't matter. And, he's like, it does to me. And then the girl says, why don't you just let us do it, because, that's their thing. And they don't want her messing it up. So she kind of feels left out. And obviously she doesn't have, any of the, field training that any S.H.I.E.L.D. agent does have. Excuse me. And while the other two don't, the scientists, they are at least S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and, they're at least slightly familiar with the weapons. They make the weapons, and they are familiar with some of the protocols because, they're S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. I would assume they'd at least get trained, for emergency situations, such as, in this episode when they were being attacked. But I thought it was really well done how in the end they all come together. And, it's mentioned towards the middle of the episode, and of course I'll have to get the names later on, but, the hacker, she mentions how the team isn't really a team, like they don't work together. And she says, I might as well be team leader at this point because no one likes each other, no one really gets along because they're not really a team yet. And it's cool to see that sort of work itself out in the end, but obviously we'll have that advance further through each episode, and eventually it'll kind of tear apart because we did get, another little hint of, a future storyline in this season, which is the hacker is still, she's still not really on their side, and she's working for her own organization still, and whatever her plan is, she's going to try to, basically stop S.H.I.E.L.D. and, help herself and the people that she works with in the rising tide. So it'll be cool to see that, and I'm glad we got that little hint. I initially thought, when it first came up, I thought she was just going to ignore it, and then it was like, okay, maybe she'll ignore it, or maybe she will say, like, I'm in, which she does say. And so when she said, I'm in, and she decides that she will, betray them at some point, it is pretty cool that she has that, and we'll get to see that in some future episode, in this season. It'll be cool to see that, and also to be cool just to see, more people from the Rising Tide organization, because initially, in episode 1 and in this one, it's still just her. And in episode 1, I really thought it was only her until in this episode she mentions, like 100 people with 1%. She, is obviously saying, organization of people working together get to do this. But initially, I thought it was just like her on her own, just doing all this, random stuff, kind of like picking on Shield. And so it would be cool to see other people come in and if they do know her on a personal level, that'll make this storyline even better when she finally has to choose between the rising tide and sticking with Shield. So I'm definitely excited to see where that goes. But for now, this episode as a whole, I thought was really well done. Like I said, the action was really cool. My favorite stuff, obviously, was from May. She's like the top like fighting person on the team right now, and whatever her backstory is, that's what I'm excited to hear about the most. And like just seeing her do even more fighting is going to be pretty cool too, because obviously, like she broke her own wrist just to get out of handcuffs. I feel like she has a lot more up her sleeve that we're really going to enjoy seeing as far as action based stuff. And also her talking about how she doesn't use guns. I'm definitely excited to see how that plays out, because it's either once again whatever the lost thing was when she in her past, whatever she dealt with, if that has something to do with guns too, once she gets over that, she might just be like Terminator and just like have zero troubles. And I'm just excited to see how she plays out as a character right now. And so just everything else with her, I'm just really excited for her and how she's gonna play out, because she's also like the really quiet one on the team. So she's like, you know, she barely talks. If she's mad, she kind of shut down. Which they showed in this episode with her and Coulson, when he mentions like, I know you didn't want to really get into the action, and I'm sorry you had to do that. And she's just, stone faced pretty much, because whatever she dealt with was really serious. So her building up to the team as well, I think that'll be pretty cool to see, where she gets to the point where she wants to protect them because they're like family now, rather than her, just being on her own. So comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Plot points, hints with May, hints with the hacker girl, and any random speculations you have as far as Coulson. We still have to figure out what's going on with him, if he's a clone or if it's anything else. I still think it's just he's got to be a clone. But comment below, let me know what you thought of the episode, and what do you think next week's episode is going to be like, because from the preview I saw, I think it'll be fairly cool. So comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.